Billionaire invited his ex-wife to join him at a friend's wedding. She arrived holding a baby. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now sit back and enjoy every detail. The rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Grayson Maddox's Manhattan penthouse, each drop echoing the hollow feeling that had settled in his chest for the past 18 months. At 36, he commanded boardrooms with the same ease others ordered coffee, his sharp jawline and steel-gray eyes intimidating competitors across marble conference tables. Tonight, however, those same eyes stared blankly at his reflection in the dark glass. His 6'2" frame, usually impeccably dressed in tailored Armani suits, was relaxed in charcoal sweatpants and a white t-shirt that accentuated his athletic build. Dark brown hair, always perfectly styled for business meetings, now fell carelessly across his forehead. The man who had built a real estate empire worth billions looked lost in his own success. The bourbon in his crystal tumbler had gone warm an hour ago, untouched like so many things in his life lately. His penthouse, featured twice in Architectural Digest, felt more like a museum than a home. Pristine white furniture, abstract art worth more than most people's houses, and not a single photograph or personal touch anywhere. Grayson picked up his phone for the 4th time that evening, scrolling through his contacts until he reached the name he'd been avoiding. Marcus Chen, college friend. His thumb hovered over the call button before he finally pressed it. Gray? Jesus, man, it's been forever. Marcus's familiar voice filled the silence. I need Amelia's number. The words came out before Grayson could stop them, raw and desperate in a way that made him flinch. A long pause. Dude, are you sure that's a good idea? It's been over a year since I destroyed the best thing in my life. Grayson's voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat, forcing his usual composure back into place. I know exactly how long it's been, Marcus. 1 year, 8 months, and 12 days. Gray. I can't stop thinking about her. Every deal I close, every success I achieve, it all feels empty without her there. He stood, pacing to the window where the city lights blurred together. I've tried moving on. God knows I've tried. But no one else comes close to Amelia. Marcus sighed deeply. She changed her number twice, you know, and her address. She really wanted a clean break from all of us. The words hit Grayson like a physical blow. Amelia Hart, with her warm honey-colored hair that caught sunlight like spun gold, her emerald green eyes that could see right through his carefully constructed walls, had erased him completely from her life. The woman who used to curl up against his chest on Sunday mornings, who made terrible coffee but perfect pancakes, who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. Please, Marcus. I need to make this right. Another pause. Longer this time. Callie and Owen's wedding is next Saturday. Big outdoor ceremony at the Vineyard in Sonoma. You remember Owen from college, right? Anyway, I might have mentioned to someone that you'd been asking about her. Grayson's heart stopped. Is she going? I honestly don't know, but Gray, if you're going to do this, you better be sure. She was different after the divorce. Quieter. Like some light went out of her. The guilt twisted in Grayson's stomach like a knife. He remembered their last conversation. How cold he'd been. How he'd convinced himself that wanting freedom was more important than the love in her eyes. How he'd walked away from a woman who had never asked him for anything except his heart. Give me her number. 20 minutes later, Grayson stared at his phone screen. Amelia's new number typed but not yet dialed. His hands, steady enough to sign billion-dollar contracts, trembled as he pressed call. 1 ring, 2, 3. Hello? Her voice was softer than he remembered, cautious in a way that made his chest ache. For a moment he couldn't speak, overwhelmed by memories of lazy Saturday mornings and whispered conversations in the dark. Amelia. Her name came out like a prayer. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. It's me, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I have no right to call. I know I hurt you, but I need to see you. Grayson. She said his name like it physically hurt, and he could picture her biting her lower lip the way she always did when she was fighting tears. Callie and Owen are getting married next Saturday. I was wondering, he took a shaky breath, would you come with me? As my date? I know it's crazy, and I know I don't deserve it, but I miss you so much it feels like I can't breathe sometimes. The silence stretched so long he thought she'd hung up. Then, barely audible, I'll be there. The line went dead, leaving Grayson staring at his phone in shock. She'd said yes. After 18 months of silence, of him destroying everything beautiful between them, Amelia Hart had agreed to see him again. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of California sunshine that made everything look like a movie set. Amelia Hart stood in front of her bedroom mirror in her modest apartment in Palo Alto, adjusting the flowing fabric of her sage green dress for the third time. The color brought out her eyes just like Grayson used to tell her during their marriage. She'd chosen it deliberately, though she wasn't ready to admit that to herself. At 29, Amelia possessed a natural elegance that expensive clothes couldn't create. Her honey blonde hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and her skin had the healthy glow of someone who spent time outdoors. She'd always been beautiful, but there was something different about her now. A quiet strength in the set of her shoulders, a guardedness in her emerald eyes that hadn't been there before. "Mama, you look pretty," came a soft voice from the doorway. Amelia turned to find her 11-month-old daughter Lily, pulling herself up against the doorframe. The little girl had inherited Grayson's dark hair and the distinctive curve of his jawline, but her eyes were pure Amelia, bright green and curious about everything. "Thank you, sweetheart," Amelia whispered, scooping Lily into her arms. The baby giggled, reaching for the delicate gold necklace at her mother's throat, the only piece of jewelry Amelia had kept from her marriage. The apartment was nothing like the penthouse she'd shared with Grayson. This was a real home, walls covered with Lily's drawings, books scattered on every surface, toys tucked into corners. A half-finished painting of a sunset sat on an easel by the window, evidence of the art career Amelia had quietly built over the past year and a half. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Are you absolutely sure about this? You don't owe him anything." Amelia stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Rebecca had been her rock through the divorce, through the lonely nights of pregnancy, through the terrifying first months of single motherhood. She was right. Amelia didn't owe Grayson anything, but she owed herself the truth. For 18 months, she'd carried the weight of her secret like a stone in her chest. Every time Lily smiled, every time she took a new step or spoke a new word, Amelia felt the sharp pain of knowing Grayson was missing it all. Not because he'd chosen to, but because she'd made that choice for him. "I need to do this," she typed back. An hour later, Amelia's hands were steady as she secured Lily into her car seat, but her heart hammered against her ribs. The drive to Sonoma Valley would take 2 hours. 2 hours to rehearse what she would say, how she would explain, how she would handle the moment when Grayson realized the truth. Meanwhile, in his San Francisco hotel suite, Grayson stood before his own mirror adjusting his navy blue Tom Ford suit. He'd changed 3 times, finally settling on something that said successful, but not arrogant, confident, but approachable. His usually perfect hair showed evidence of nervous finger combing, and there were shadows under his steel gray eyes that spoke of a sleepless night. His phone rang. "Marcus, how are you holding up, man?" "Like I'm about to jump out of a plane without checking if I have a parachute," Grayson admitted, loosening his silver tie slightly. "What if she's moved on? What if there's someone else? Then you'll deal with it. But Gray, you need to be prepared for the fact that she might not want what you want. You broke her heart pretty thoroughly." The words hit their mark. Grayson closed his eyes, remembering their last fight, if you could call it a fight when only one person was yelling. Amelia had stood in their kitchen, tears streaming down her face, begging him to reconsider. "We could be so happy, Grayson. We could have the family we always talked about." "I never talked about a family. You did. I want my freedom back." The cruelty of his own words still made him sick. "I was an idiot, Marcus." "Yeah, well, join the club. We've all been idiots about something. The question is what you're going to do about it now." After hanging up, Grayson walked to the window overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. Somewhere out there, Amelia was getting ready to see him again. The woman who used to leave little notes in his briefcase, who would stay up late when he worked, who believed he could be better than he believed himself to be. He'd spent 18 months trying to convince himself that leaving had been the right choice. That marriage was a trap. That commitment was weakness, that he needed to experience life without attachments. He'd dated other women, beautiful, successful, uncomplicated women who wanted nothing more than a good time and expensive dinners. None of them had ever looked at him the way Amelia had, like he was both her anchor and her adventure. At noon, both of them were driving toward the same destination, carrying the weight of unspoken truths and unfinished conversations. The vineyard venue sprawled across rolling hills, decorated with white roses and fairy lights that would twinkle when evening came. Grayson arrived first, immediately scanning the parking area for any sign of Amelia's car. His hands were actually sweating, something that hadn't happened since his first billion-dollar presentation. Other guests milled around in their wedding finery, but he couldn't focus on small talk or familiar faces. Then he saw it, a modest blue sedan pulling into the lot. His breath caught as the driver's door opened and a familiar figure emerged. Amelia looked stunning, her green dress flowing as she moved, her hair catching the afternoon sunlight. But then she opened the back door, and Grayson's entire world shifted on its axis as she lifted a baby from a car seat. Time seemed to freeze as Grayson watched Amelia lift the baby from the car seat with practiced ease. The child was beautiful, dark curls catching the sunlight, chubby cheeks, and when she turned her tiny head, Grayson felt his knees nearly buckle. Those eyes, steel gray, just like his own. The mathematical calculation hit him like a physical blow. 11 months old. The divorce had been finalized 18 months ago, but they'd been separated for 2 months before that. The timing was perfect. Horrifically, devastatingly perfect. Jesus Christ, he whispered, his voice lost in the gentle breeze that rustled through the vineyard. Amelia spotted him across the parking lot, and for a moment, neither of them moved. She stood there in her sage green dress. The baby, his daughter, oh God, settled comfortably on her hip like she'd been doing this dance for months, which, Grayson realized with growing horror, she had been. Other wedding guests flowed around them like water around stones, chattering about the beautiful weather and the romantic venue, completely oblivious to the silent earthquake happening between two people who had once promised to love each other forever. Amelia took a shaky breath and began walking toward him. Each step felt like an eternity. Grayson's mind raced through fragments of memory, Amelia's morning sickness during their last month together, which she'd blamed on stress, the way she'd been so emotional about his leaving, begging him to stay in a way that had seemed almost desperate at the time. She'd been pregnant, she'd been carrying his child, and he'd walked away. "Hello, Grayson." Her voice was steady, but he could see the rapid pulse at her throat, could read the anxiety in the way she unconsciously tightened her hold on the baby. Amelia. His name for her came out hoarse. He couldn't take his eyes off the child, off his daughter. Her name is Lily. Amelia's chin lifted slightly, that familiar gesture of quiet defiance he remembered from their marriage whenever she was preparing to stand her ground. Lily Rose. Rose. Amelia's middle name, the name he'd whispered against her skin on their wedding night. How old? The question scraped against his throat like broken glass. 11 months and 2 weeks. The admission hung between them like a confession. Grayson did the math again, hoping desperately that somehow he'd been wrong, that there was another explanation. But the numbers were unforgiving, just like the familiar curve of the baby's jawline, the way she had his mother's nose. Mine? The single word contained 18 months of questions, regret, and desperate hope. Amelia's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Yes. The world tilted. Grayson reached out blindly, his hand finding the nearest car to steady himself. 18 months. He'd missed 18 months of his daughter's life. Her first smile, her first word, her first step, all of it gone. Irretrievable, because the woman he'd claimed to love had hidden it from him. Why? The word exploded from him louder than he'd intended, causing several nearby guests to glance their way with curiosity. He forced his voice lower, but the pain bled through anyway. Why didn't you tell me? Lily chose that moment to babble something that sounded remarkably like Dada, reaching her tiny hands toward Grayson with the fearless curiosity of a child who didn't yet understand that the world could be cruel. The sound broke something inside him. Without thinking, he stepped closer, and Amelia, perhaps seeing something in his face, perhaps remembering the man she'd once loved, shifted Lily slightly toward him. "Can I?" His voice cracked completely. Amelia nodded, and suddenly Grayson was holding his daughter for the first time. Lily was solid and warm against his chest, smelling like baby shampoo and something uniquely her own. She stared up at him with those familiar gray eyes, completely unafraid, and made a soft cooing sound that went straight to his heart. "Oh God," he breathed, his arms instinctively adjusting to support her better. "Oh, Amelia, she's perfect." Tears were streaming down Amelia's face now, 18 months of carefully controlled emotions finally breaking free. "You said you didn't want children. You said you wanted your freedom. What was I supposed to do? Chase after a man who'd made it clear that the idea of a family was suffocating him? You were supposed to tell me." His voice rose again before he caught himself, not wanting to frighten Lily. You were supposed to give me the choice. You made your choice when you walked away from our marriage. I was scared. The admission tore from him like a physical wound. I was terrified of becoming my father, of failing you both, of being trapped in something I wasn't good enough for. But I never would have abandoned my child, Amelia. Never. Lily had fallen asleep in his arms, her tiny fist curled against his shirt. The sight of her, so small, so trusting, made his chest ache with a love so fierce it was almost violent. She looks like you, Amelia whispered, her anger deflating into something softer, more vulnerable. She has your stubbornness, Grayson replied, noting the determined set of the baby's mouth even in sleep. And probably your intelligence, thank God. A watery laugh escaped Amelia. Her first word was book. She's obsessed with them. The casual intimacy of the moment, two parents sharing details about their child, felt both natural and surreal. They were strangers now, but connected by this perfect little person who carried pieces of them both. I have so many questions, Grayson said quietly, reluctantly transferring Lily back to her mother's arms when the baby began to stir. But first, I need you to know, I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry, Em, for leaving, for making you feel like you couldn't trust me with this, for missing all of it. I kept a journal, Amelia said suddenly, of everything. Her first smile at 6 weeks, when she started sleeping through the night, her first tooth. I told myself I was writing it for me, but she looked away. I think I was always writing it for you. The revelation hit him like a sucker punch. Even in her anger, even in her hurt, she'd been thinking of him. She'd preserved their daughter's milestones like sacred things, waiting for a moment that might never come. Would you let me read it? Before Amelia could answer, a familiar voice called out across the parking lot. Gray, there you are. And Em, oh my God, you look gorgeous. Callie Morrison, the bride herself, approached in a flurry of white lace and excitement, her eyes immediately drawn to the baby. And who is this little angel? I had no idea you had a baby, Em. Grayson and Amelia exchanged a look that carried the weight of 18 months of secrets and the promise of conversations yet to come. Callie's radiant smile faltered slightly as she noticed the tension crackling between Grayson and Amelia. Her wedding planner instincts kicked in, reading the room with the skill of someone who'd spent months coordinating personalities and managing drama. This is my daughter Lily, Amelia said carefully, her voice artificially bright. She's 11 months old. She's absolutely precious, Callie cooed, but her eyes flickered between Grayson's shell-shocked expression and Amelia's carefully composed face. Well, you two should find your seats. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. As Callie hurried away to greet other guests, Grayson and Amelia were left standing awkwardly beside her car. The weight of 18 months of secrets and unspoken truth settled between them like a physical presence. We need to talk, Grayson said quietly. Not here. Amelia adjusted Lily on her hip, the baby now fully awake and taking in the vineyard scenery with wide, curious eyes. After the ceremony, they walked toward the ceremony area in tense silence, other guests nodding politely as they passed. Grayson couldn't help but notice how naturally Amelia had slipped back into social mode, smiling at acquaintances, making small talk, all while balancing a baby with the ease of practiced motherhood. The wedding was being held in a natural amphitheater surrounded by grapevines, white chairs arranged in neat rows facing an altar, decorated with cascading roses and eucalyptus. It was exactly the kind of romantic setting that once would have made Grayson uncomfortable, but now all he could focus on was the woman beside him and the child she held. They found seats in the back row, Amelia strategically choosing the aisle in case Lily became fussy. As they settled in, Grayson noticed other guests stealing glances at them, some curious, some knowing. He realized that to the outside world they probably looked like a happy family. The irony was devastating. Does she usually do well at events like this? He asked quietly, watching Lily examine the program with the intense concentration only babies could manage. She's actually very social. She loves music and crowds, Amelia replied, then seemed to catch herself sharing intimate details. The wall went back up. She'll be fine. The string quartet began playing, and Owen appeared at the altar with his groomsmen. Grayson remembered him from college. A good guy, steady and reliable in ways Grayson had never been. The kind of man who probably never walked away from the woman he loved because he was afraid of commitment. As the processional began, Lily clapped her hands together in delight at the music, earning soft chuckles from nearby guests. The sound made Grayson's chest tight. How many moments like this had he missed? How many times had his daughter laughed or smiled or done something adorable, and he hadn't been there to see it? Callie appeared at the back of the aisle, stunning in her flowing white dress, her father beaming beside her. As she walked past their row, Lily reached out toward her with a happy babble, apparently fascinated by all the white fabric and sparkling details. "She likes pretty things," Amelia murmured, gently redirecting Lily's reaching hands. "Like her mother," Grayson said without thinking, then immediately tensed, waiting for Amelia's reaction. She glanced at him sharply, something unreadable flickering across her face before she turned back to the ceremony. The officiant began speaking about love, commitment, and the courage it takes to promise forever to another person. Every word felt like a knife twist in Grayson's chest. He'd stood at an altar once making those same promises to the woman sitting beside him, and then he'd broken every single one. "Marriage is not just about the moments when love feels easy," the officiant continued. "It's about choosing each other when love feels hard, when fear tries to make you run, when life presents you with challenges you never expected to face." Grayson felt Amelia's sharp intake of breath beside him. Owen was crying as he spoke his vows, his voice breaking as he promised to be Callie's partner through whatever life brought them. "I promise to choose courage over fear, love over pride, and to never let anything come between us and the family we're going to build together." The words hit Grayson like a physical blow. Choose courage over fear. He'd done the exact opposite. When faced with the prospect of building a life with Amelia, of becoming a father, of being responsible for another person's happiness, he'd chosen fear. He'd run. Lily had grown quiet during the ceremony, mesmerized by the music and the solemnity of the moment. She'd settled against Amelia's chest, one tiny hand tangled in her mother's necklace, the one Grayson had given her for their first anniversary. As Callie and Owen exchanged rings, promising to love each other through sickness and health, joy and sorrow, Grayson found himself studying Amelia's profile. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched their friends make the promises she and Grayson had once made to each other. Without thinking, he reached over and gently wiped away a tear from her cheek. She turned to look at him, startled, and for a moment they were transported back in time. Back to when touching her was as natural as breathing, when he had the right to comfort her, when they were partners facing the world together. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and they both knew he wasn't just apologizing for the tear. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced, and the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Lily startled at the sudden noise, her face scrunching up in preparation for tears. Instinctively, Grayson reached for her, making soft shushing sounds he didn't know he knew how to make. To his amazement, Lily calmed, studying his face with those serious gray eyes that were so much like his own. "She likes you," Amelia said softly, surprise evident in her voice. "Is that a bad thing?" he asked, still looking at his daughter. "I don't know," she admitted. "I honestly don't know anything anymore." As the newlyweds processed back down the aisle and guests began rising for cocktail hour, Amelia stood and began gathering their things, but Grayson caught her wrist gently. "Before we join the reception," he said urgently, "I need to know, the journal you mentioned, when did you start it?" Amelia's eyes filled with fresh tears. "The day I found out I was pregnant. 3 weeks after you left." The timeline crashed over him like a wave. 3 weeks. If she'd known just 3 weeks earlier, would he have stayed? Would they have worked through his fears together instead of apart? Congratulations, you two." Marcus Chen appeared beside them, grinning widely before taking in their expressions. "Oh, is everything okay?" Grayson looked at his oldest friend, then at Amelia, then at the daughter he'd just discovered existed. Nothing was okay. Everything had changed, and he had no idea how to fix any of it. Marcus's confusion was palpable as he looked between Grayson's stricken face and Amelia's tear-stained cheeks. His gaze dropped to Lily, who was contentedly playing with the buttons on Grayson's suit jacket, and something shifted in his expression. "Holy shit," Marcus breathed, then immediately looked apologetic. "Sorry language, but Gray, is she mine?" Grayson confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's mine, and I had no idea." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, processing the bombshell. "Jesus, Em, you've been raising a baby alone for almost a year?" 11 months, Amelia corrected stiffly. "And I wasn't alone. I had my sister, my friends, my art students. We managed just fine." The defensive edge in her voice made Grayson's chest ache. This was what he'd reduced her to. A woman who felt the need to prove she didn't need anyone, least of all him. "That's not what I meant." Marcus said gently. He'd always been the peacemaker in their college group, the one who could diffuse tension with careful words. I just meant, God, Em, you must have been so scared. Tears spilled over again, and this time Amelia didn't try to stop them. Terrified. I was terrified every single day. When I found out I was pregnant, when I decided to keep the baby, during labor when I had no one to hold my hand, the first night home when she wouldn't stop crying and I thought I was the worst mother in the world. Each word was like a dagger in Grayson's heart. He'd been living his consequence-free life, dating other women, building his empire, while Amelia had been facing the greatest challenge of her life completely alone. Why didn't you call me? Marcus asked. Or any of us. We would have helped. Because he made it very clear that he didn't want a family, Amelia replied, not looking at Grayson. And I couldn't bear the thought of him feeling trapped or obligated. I didn't want him to stay for the baby if he didn't want to stay for me. You should have given me the choice, Grayson said quietly. What choice? Amelia's voice rose slightly, causing other guests to glance their way as they moved toward the cocktail reception. The choice to reluctantly pay child support? To be a part-time father who resented every minute? To marry me out of obligation and spend the rest of our lives making each other miserable? The choice to prove I could be better than I was. Grayson shot back. The choice to grow up, to face my fears, to become the man you and she deserved. You had that choice during our marriage, Amelia said, her voice breaking. I begged you to talk to me about your fears instead of running from them. I would have worked through anything with you, Grayson. Anything except being abandoned. Lily, sensing the tension in both her parents' voices, began to fuss. Instinctively, both Grayson and Amelia reached for her, their hands colliding as they tried to comfort their daughter. The touch sent electricity through both of them, muscle memory of 1,000 gentle moments they'd once shared. She's hungry, Amelia said, pulling back. I need to feed her. Is there somewhere private we can go? Grayson asked. We need to finish this conversation without an audience. Marcus, reading the situation perfectly, stepped forward. The bridal suite in the main house is empty right now. Callie won't need it until later for photos. I can show you where it is. They made their way through the cocktail reception, past groups of laughing guests with champagne flutes and appetizer plates. Grayson nodded absently at acquaintances, his mind entirely focused on the woman beside him and the baby in her arms who kept reaching for his tie. The bridal suite was elegant but comfortable, with a sitting area and large windows overlooking the vineyard. Marcus discreetly left them alone, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Amelia settled into an armchair, positioning Lily for nursing with the practiced efficiency of an experienced mother. She'd brought a light blanket to drape over herself, but Grayson had seen this dance before, during their marriage. When Amelia had helped her sister with her newborn nephew, he'd made some comment then about how natural she looked with a baby, and she'd smiled hopefully, saying she couldn't wait for their turn. He'd changed the subject, uncomfortable with the longing in her voice. Now, watching her nurse their daughter with such tenderness and competence, he felt the full weight of everything he'd thrown away. Tell me about her, he said softly, taking the chair across from them. Tell me everything. Amelia looked surprised by the gentleness in his voice. What do you want to know? Everything. When you found out you were pregnant, what it was like being alone during the pregnancy, the birth, her first months. I want to know what her favorite foods are, what makes her laugh, what she's afraid of. I want to know our daughter. Something in Amelia's face softened at his use of our daughter. She loves bananas and hates green beans, Amelia began quietly. She's fascinated by music, any kind of music. She'll stop crying instantly if you sing to her. She's incredibly social, smiles at everyone, but she's also very observant. Sometimes I catch her just studying people, like she's trying to figure them out, like you used to do, Grayson said with a small smile. Remember how you used to watch people at restaurants and make up stories about their lives? She has your determination, Amelia continued, ignoring his comment but not able to hide a slight smile. When she wants something, she doesn't give up. She taught herself to crawl by watching videos on my tablet. I swear she understood what she was seeing and decided to figure it out. Smart like her mother, stubborn like her father. They shared a look that was almost like their old easy intimacy before reality crashed back down. Grayson said carefully, I need you to know, if I had known about her, everything would have been different. Would it? Amelia challenged. Or would you have felt trapped and grown to resent us both? I don't know, he admitted, the honesty costing him. I was so afraid of becoming my father, distant, cold, more married to his work than his family. I thought if I stayed single, I could never hurt anyone the way he hurt my mother. So instead, you hurt me worse than he ever could have." The words hung in the air like a slap. Lily had finished nursing and fallen asleep in her mother's arms, completely peaceful, despite the emotional storm swirling around her. "I know," Grayson whispered, "and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, Em. I'm here and I want to be part of her life. Part of both your lives, if you'll let me." Amelia looked down at their sleeping daughter, then back at him with eyes full of pain and uncertainty. "It's not that simple, Grayson. You can't just show up after 18 months and expect everything to be fine. She doesn't know you. And I don't know if I can trust you not to leave again when things get hard." The silence stretched between them, heavy with 18 months of hurt and the weight of decisions that couldn't be undone. Outside the bridal suite windows, the reception was in full swing, laughter and music drifting up from the vineyard below, a stark contrast to the emotional battlefield inside the room. Grayson leaned forward in his chair, his hands clasped tightly together. "What would it take, Em? What would I need to do to prove that I'm not going anywhere this time?" "I don't know if anything could prove that," Amelia replied honestly, adjusting Lily's sleeping form against her chest. "You were my husband, Grayson. We made vows to each other, promised to work through problems together, and at the first sign of real commitment, the possibility of children, you ran. If marriage wasn't enough to keep you, what could be?" The words cut deep, because they were true. He had run. When faced with Amelia's growing desire for a family, her gentle hints about the future they could build together, he'd felt the walls closing in. Every conversation about baby names or nursery colors had felt like a chain around his throat. "I was a coward," he said simply. "I was 28 years old and terrified of becoming like my father. He was never present, Em. Even when he was physically there, he was thinking about the next deal, the next acquisition. My mother spent my entire childhood competing with his business for his attention, and she always lost. So you decided the solution was to never try at all?" "I decided the solution was to be honest about what I couldn't give you." His voice rose slightly, old frustration bleeding through. "I thought I was doing the right thing by letting you go so you could find someone who could give you the family you wanted. That wasn't your choice to make for me," Amelia said fiercely, and Lily stirred at the change in her voice. She automatically lowered her tone, rocking gently. "I didn't want someone else, Grayson. I wanted you. I would have rather had a childless life with you than a perfect family with anyone else." The admission hit him like a physical blow. "You don't mean that." "I absolutely mean that. And the fact that you don't know that, don't understand that, proves how little you actually knew me despite 3 years of marriage." Before Grayson could respond, his phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it automatically, then froze. The message was from Victoria Ashford, the woman he'd been casually seeing for the past 2 months. "Missing you tonight. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I have something exciting to tell you. XOXO." Amelia, sitting close enough to see his phone screen, went completely still. "Who's Victoria?" she asked quietly. Grayson's stomach dropped. "Em, we're not serious, it's just what?" Her voice was dangerously calm. "Just someone you've been sleeping with while calling me and saying you miss me, while asking me to be your date to a wedding? It's complicated." "No, Grayson, it's really not complicated at all." Amelia stood carefully, still holding Lily, her movements sharp with controlled anger. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You haven't changed at all. You're still the same man who thinks he can have everything without committing to anything. That's not fair. I didn't know about Lily when Victoria and I started, whatever this is. And I certainly didn't know I'd feel this way seeing you again." "What way?" she demanded. "Like I'm drowning without you," he said, desperately standing as well. "Like the last 18 months have been the biggest mistake of my life. Like maybe we could find our way back to each other." Amelia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "While you're dating other people. Very romantic, Grayson. I'll end it with her. Today. Right now." He was already reaching for his phone. "Don't you dare use our daughter as an excuse to treat another woman badly," Amelia snapped. "Victoria, whoever she is, doesn't deserve to be discarded because it's suddenly convenient for you." The fact that even in her anger, Amelia was thinking about protecting another woman from being hurt made Grayson's chest ache with love and regret. "Then what do you want me to do?" he asked helplessly. "I want you to figure out what you actually want instead of just reacting to situations," she said, moving toward the door. "I want you to be honest with Victoria, honest with yourself, and honest with me. And until you can do that, I don't think we should do this." Do what? Pretend that 18 months of hurt can be erased by one emotional conversation at a wedding. She was almost to the door when Lily woke up and, seeing Grayson across the room, reached out toward him with a sleepy smile. "Dada," she said clearly, the word unmistakable this time. Both parents froze. It was Lily's first clear word, spoken with perfect timing and devastating effect. "She's never said that before," Amelia whispered, tears filling her eyes again. Grayson felt like his heart was being ripped from his chest. His daughter's first word. And it was for him, a stranger she'd met hours ago. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. Please," he said, his voice breaking. "I know I don't deserve it, but please don't take her away from me. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll end things with Victoria properly. I'll prove to you that I'm not the same man who walked away. Just please give me a chance to be her father." Amelia looked at Lily, who was still reaching for Grayson, then back at him. For a moment, he saw the war playing out on her face, her protective instincts battling against her fair nature, her hurt wrestling with what was best for their daughter. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is all too much. Too fast. I came here to tell you about her. Not to fall back into old patterns." "What old patterns?" "Letting you charm your way back into my life when you haven't actually changed," she said sadly. "I won't do that to myself again, Grayson, and I won't do that to her." She opened the door, then paused without looking back. "The journal is at my apartment. If you really want to know about the time you missed, you can read it. But understand, those memories aren't yours to claim. They're mine. I lived through every sleepless night, every milestone, every moment of joy and terror alone. Reading about them won't make you her father. Being present from now on will." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Grayson alone in the bridal suite with the scent of her perfume and the echo of his daughter's first word. "Dada." He sank into the chair she'd vacated, put his head in his hands, and for the first time since he was a child, Grayson Maddox cried. 3 days had passed since the wedding, and Grayson hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. He'd returned to San Francisco Sunday night and immediately called Victoria, asking to meet for dinner. The conversation had been one of the hardest of his life. "You're ending this because of your ex-wife," Victoria had said, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her wine glass. She was stunning. A successful marketing executive with platinum blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. Exactly the type of uncomplicated woman he'd thought he wanted. "I'm ending this because it's the right thing to do," he'd replied honestly. "I've just discovered I have a daughter, Victoria. My priorities have completely shifted." She'd been gracious about it, more gracious than he deserved. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Grayson. You're a good man, but you've never been fully present in any conversation we've had. I think part of you has always been somewhere else." Somewhere else. With Amelia. Now Tuesday evening, Grayson stood outside Amelia's apartment building in Palo Alto, holding his breath as he pressed the buzzer for Unit 4B. The building was charming but modest. Red brick with window boxes full of flowers, the kind of place where neighbors actually knew each other's names. "Hello?" Amelia's voice crackled through the intercom. "It's me. I ended things with Victoria, properly, and I'd like to read the journal if the offer still stands." A long pause. Then the buzzer sounded, granting him entry. Her apartment was everything his penthouse wasn't. Lived in, warm, filled with evidence of a real life being lived. Children's books stacked on every surface. Colorful toys scattered across the hardwood floor. Paintings covering the walls. Some clearly Amelia's work. Others finger paint masterpieces that could only be Lily's early attempts at art. "She's sleeping," Amelia said quietly, opening the door. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she was more beautiful than any woman had a right to be in such ordinary clothes. "How long has she been down?" "About an hour. She usually sleeps for 2 hours in the evening, then has a bottle before bed." The domestic details felt both foreign and achingly familiar. This should have been his routine too. Amelia moved to a bookshelf and pulled out a thick, leather-bound journal. "I started this the day I found out I was pregnant," she said, holding it against her chest like armor. "Some entries are just a few lines. Others are longer, more detailed." He stepped closer, noting the way she unconsciously stepped back. "Before you give that to me, I need you to know. I told Victoria about you, about Lily. I explained that I couldn't be with her while my heart was somewhere else." "Where is your heart, Grayson?" The question was soft but loaded with 18 months of pain. "With you. With our daughter. It never left, Em." I just convinced myself it had. She studied his face for a long moment, then held out the journal. Some of these entries were written in the middle of the night when I was angry or scared or exhausted. They're not kind to you. I don't deserve kindness from you right now. No, she agreed sadly. You don't. Grayson took the journal, surprised by its weight. Will you stay while I read it? I can't. It's too hard watching you discover everything you missed. She grabbed her keys from a hook by the door. I'm going to my sister's for a few hours. Let yourself out when you're done, and leave the journal on the coffee table. After she left, Grayson settled onto her couch, soft and well-worn, with a baby blanket draped over one arm, and opened the journal to the first page. March 15th. I'm pregnant. 3 weeks since Grayson left and I'm pregnant. I took 5 tests to be sure. I keep staring at the little pink lines and wondering if this is the universe's idea of a joke. The man who said he never wanted children gave me one, then disappeared before I could tell him. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to call him, but what would I say? Remember how you left because you wanted freedom? Well, surprise. You're going to be a father. He'd think I was trying to trap him. I'm scared. I'm so fucking scared. The raw honesty in her handwriting made his chest ache. He flipped through pages documenting her first doctor's appointments, her morning sickness, her struggle to afford prenatal vitamins on her teacher's salary while living alone. April the 2nd. Heard the heartbeat today. Strong and fast, like a tiny drum. The doctor said everything looks perfect. I cried in the parking lot after, wishing G was there to hear it too. I'm starting to show, just a little bump that I can hide under loose shirts. I touch it sometimes and wonder if she'll have his eyes or mine. I think it's a girl. I don't know why. April 20th. Had to tell my principal today. She was surprisingly supportive. Said I could work until I'm ready to take leave. Rebecca keeps asking if I've contacted G yet. I haven't. What's the point? He made his choice. May entries detailed her growing belly, her exhaustion, her fears about doing this alone. June brought preparations, painting the nursery a soft yellow, buying a crib secondhand, practicing breathing techniques by herself in childbirth class. July 4th, Independence Day. How fitting. 7 months pregnant and officially independent whether I want to be or not. Watched fireworks from my apartment window and felt her kicking like she was trying to applaud. I wonder if G is watching fireworks somewhere, thinking about the independence he wanted so badly. August was harder to read. Entries about false labor. Her terror that something would go wrong and she'd face it alone. Her sister taking time off work to be with her. August 15th. She's here. Lily Rose Hart. Born at 3:47 a.m. after 14 hours of labor. 7 pounds 2 ounces, perfect in every way. She has G's jawline and his serious expression, but my eyes. She barely cried when they put her on my chest. Just stared at me like she was trying to memorize my face. I've never felt love like this. It's terrifying and overwhelming and perfect. I wish G could see her. Even after everything, I wish he could see how beautiful she is. Grayson had to stop reading, his vision blurred by tears. He'd missed it. He'd missed the birth of his daughter, missed those first precious moments because he'd been too much of a coward to face his fears. The entries continued. Sleepless nights, feeding schedules, Lily's first smile at 6 weeks, her first laugh at 3 months. Emilia documented everything with the dedication of someone who understood that memories were precious things that could be lost, if not carefully preserved. October 30th. Elle rolled over today. I was changing her diaper and suddenly she flipped onto her tummy looking so proud of herself. I clapped and cheered and she laughed like she knew she'd done something amazing. I took 12 pictures and a video, but none of them capture how perfect the moment was. I caught myself reaching for my phone to call G and tell him. Old habits. December 1st. First tooth. Elle was fussy all day, drooling everywhere, and I finally felt the tiny, sharp edge poking through her bottom gum. She bit my finger and looked so surprised when I yelped. Even teething, she's gorgeous. I wonder if G is thinking about us at all, if he ever wonders what he's missing. December 25th. Elle's first Christmas. Rebecca came over, brought way too many presents. Elle was more interested in the wrapping paper than the toys. She sat in a pile of shredded paper laughing and trying to eat it, and I thought my heart might burst. I bought G a Christmas card. I wrote it and sealed it and addressed it, then threw it away. What would I say? Merry Christmas from the family you didn't want? The recent entries were shorter, documenting Lily's growing personality, her attempts to crawl, her babbling that sometimes sounded like real words. March 10th. Elle said something that sounded like mama today. Rebecca insists it was just babbling, but I swear she was looking right at me. I cried happy tears for an hour. March 28th. G called. After 18 months of silence, he called. His voice sounded different. Older, maybe sadder. He asked me to go to Callie's wedding with him. I said yes before I could stop myself. I don't know what I'm doing. But maybe it's time Elle met her father. Maybe it's time I stopped carrying this secret alone. The final entry was dated the day after the wedding, April 15th. I told him. I showed him his daughter and watched his world fall apart. He looked at Elle like she was a miracle and a tragedy all at once. He cried when she said Dada. I've never seen Grayson cry. I'm scared to hope, but I can't help it. The way he looked at her, the way he held her. Maybe people really can change. Maybe some mistakes can be forgiven. But I won't risk my heart again unless I'm sure. Elle deserves a father who won't disappear when things get difficult. I deserve a partner who chooses courage over fear. I just don't know if G is capable of being either of those things. Grayson closed the journal, overwhelmed by the weight of everything he'd missed, everything Amelia had endured alone. He'd spent 18 months living a hollow life while she'd been here, growing into motherhood, documenting their daughter's milestones with the hope that someday he might want to know about them. He pulled out his phone and began typing a text message. I read every word. I'm sorry isn't enough, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you both deserve, the father she needs, the partner you should have had from the beginning. He hesitated, then added, I love you, Em. I love our daughter, and I'm not going anywhere ever again. Just as he hit send, he heard a soft cry from down the hall. Lily was awake. Grayson stood frozen in Amelia's living room as Lily's soft cries echoed from down the hall. Every instinct told him to go to her, but he had no idea what to do with a fussy 11-month-old. What if he made things worse? What if he scared her? The crying intensified and suddenly his paralysis broke. This was his daughter and she needed someone. Even if he didn't know what he was doing, he had to try. He found her in a small nursery painted soft yellow, standing in her crib with tears streaming down her chubby cheeks. The room was simple, but filled with love, handmade mobile with felt animals, family photos on the dresser, a rocking chair by the window with a worn stuffed elephant perched on the arm. Hey there, sweetheart, he said softly, approaching the crib slowly. It's okay. Daddy's here. The word felt strange on his tongue, but also completely natural. Lily looked up at him with those familiar gray eyes, her crying tapering off to confused hiccups. She'd been napping in a pink onesie with tiny butterflies, her dark curls matted against one side of her head. Did you have a good nap? He asked, reaching into the crib carefully. She came to him willingly, her small body warm and solid against his chest. The trust in her gesture made his throat tight with emotion. She smelled like baby powder and something uniquely her own, sweet and clean and perfect. As he held her, she studied his face with the intense curiosity Amelia had described, one tiny hand reaching up to touch his jaw with surprising gentleness. You're so beautiful, he whispered, just like your mama. Lily babbled something that might have been a response, then suddenly twisted in his arms, pointing toward the kitchen with determination. Hungry? He guessed. Baba, she said clearly, and his heart skipped. Her second word, and he was here to witness it. In the kitchen, he found bottles in the refrigerator and a chart on the wall detailing Lily's feeding schedule, nap times, and favorite foods. Amelia had thought of everything, creating a system that would help anyone caring for their daughter. Had she made this chart hoping that someday he might need it? While the bottle warmed, Lily entertained herself by dropping wooden spoons from her high chair and watching them clatter to the floor. Each time she looked at Grayson expectantly until he picked them up, then immediately dropped them again with a delighted giggle. This is a game to you, isn't it? He said, retrieving the spoons for the fourth time. Her answering grin was so much like Amelia's it took his breath away. The bottle was perfect temperature, something he'd learned from watching Amelia at the wedding. And Lily settled into his arms contentedly, her eyes drifting closed as she drank. This was what he'd missed. Not just the milestones and firsts, but these quiet, ordinary moments that made up the fabric of parenthood. His phone buzzed with Amelia's response to his earlier text. Actions, not words, Grayson. She's probably awake by now. Her evening bottle is in the fridge. He smiled, typing back one-handed while Lily finished eating. Already on it. She said, Baba, is that new? The reply came quickly. That's her word for bottle. You're witnessing her vocabulary expansion in real time. She's incredible, Em. I can't believe she's mine. She's ours. Those two words hit him harder than any love poem ever written. She's ours. Not his, not Amelia's, but theirs. A family, fractured but maybe not beyond repair. After Lily finished her bottle, Grayson wasn't sure what came next. Bath time? Playtime? Another nap? He found himself wishing desperately that he'd paid more attention during their marriage when Amelia had talked about her sister's children, describing bedtime routines and developmental milestones. Lily solved the dilemma by crawling determinedly toward a basket of toys in the living room. She was faster than he'd expected, moving with the focused intensity of someone with places to go and things to explore. "What did you find?" he asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her as she pulled out a set of colorful blocks. For the next hour, they played together on the living room rug. Lily showed him how she could stack 2 blocks before knocking them down with glee. She brought him books, wanting him to read the same picture book about farm animals 6 times in a row, pointing at the cow and making a sound that was almost moo. When she got frustrated trying to fit a square block into a round hole, he gently showed her the matching shape, watching her face light up with understanding. When she succeeded, she clapped for herself, and he found himself clapping along, both of them celebrating her tiny triumph. "You're so smart," he told her, meaning it completely. "You get that from your mama, too." The front door opened just as Lily was demonstrating her ability to pull herself up on the coffee table. Amelia stood in the doorway, taking in the scene, Grayson on the floor surrounded by toys, their daughter showing off her newest skill, both of them completely absorbed in each other. "How long has she been able to do that?" Grayson asked, steadying Lily as she wobbled on unsteady legs. "About a week," Amelia said quietly, setting down her purse and joining them on the floor. "She's getting close to walking. Maybe another month or 2. Would you call me when she takes her first steps?" The question came out more vulnerable than he'd intended. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but I don't want to miss any more firsts." Amelia looked at him for a long moment, taking in his rumpled shirt, the way Lily had apparently wiped her face on his expensive tie, the complete transformation from billionaire businessman to devoted father sitting on a toy-strewn rug. "I got your text," she said finally, and I want to believe you. But Grayson, she can't be the only reason you stay. She can't be your midlife crisis or your guilt project. If you're going to be in her life, you have to be all in, even when the novelty wears off, even when she's sick or cranky or going through terrible phases. I understand. Do you? Because parenting isn't just the cute moments and milestone celebrations. It's 3 a.m. fevers and teething pain and toddler tantrums and teenage rebellion. It's putting someone else's needs before your own every single day for the rest of your life. Are you ready for that? Lily, apparently sensing the serious tone of the conversation, crawled over to Amelia and pulled herself up using her mother's legs. Amelia automatically lifted her, settling her on her hip with the unconscious grace of practiced motherhood. "I don't know if I'm ready," Grayson admitted, "but I know I want to learn. I know that holding her feels like coming home to a place I didn't know I'd been searching for. I know that reading your journal made me understand what I threw away when I left you." "What did I throw away, Grayson?" The question was quiet but loaded with meaning. "Everything," he said without hesitation. "Love, partnership, the chance to build something beautiful together, the chance to be the man you believed I could be instead of the coward I chose to be." Lily babbled and reached for him, apparently wanting both parents' attention. Without thinking, both Grayson and Amelia moved closer, creating a small circle around their daughter. For a moment, they looked like what they could have been all along, a family. "I won't lie to you, Em," Grayson continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm terrified. I'm terrified of screwing this up, of letting you both down, of becoming my father. But I'm more terrified of losing you again, of missing her childhood, of spending the rest of my life knowing I had everything I ever really wanted and was too stupid and scared to fight for it." Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "If we do this, if we try to rebuild some kind of relationship, it can't be about going back to what we had before. That's gone. We'd have to start over, build something new, with who we are now. I know, and it can't happen overnight. Trust is earned, Grayson. Day by day, choice by choice, action by action." "I know," he repeated. "Just tell me there's a chance. Tell me I haven't destroyed everything beyond repair." Lily chose that moment to lean toward Grayson, her arms outstretched, making it clear she wanted him to hold her. Amelia hesitated for just a second, then handed their daughter over. "There's a chance," she whispered. watching Lily settle contentedly against Grayson's chest. But only if you prove you mean what you say. 2 weeks had passed since that evening on Amelia's living room floor, and Grayson had shown up every single day, not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with presence. He'd rearranged his entire schedule around Lily's routine, taking conference calls during her nap times and moving meetings to accommodate feeding schedules. Today was different, though. Today was the test neither of them had expected. Amelia's phone call had come at 5:30 a.m., her voice tight with panic. "Lily's sick. High fever. And she won't stop crying. I'm taking her to the emergency room." Grayson had broken at least 3 traffic laws getting to Stanford Children's Hospital, finding Amelia in the waiting room with Lily limp and flushed in her arms. The sight of his daughter so clearly unwell had sent ice through his veins. "How long has she been like this?" he asked, sitting beside them. "Since about 3 a.m. Her temperature spiked to 102 and nothing I did would calm her down." Amelia's voice was hoarse from exhaustion and worry. "The triage nurse said it could be hours before we're seen. Then we wait," he said simply, taking off his suit jacket and wrapping it around both of them. "Whatever it takes." What followed was the longest 6 hours of Grayson's life. Lily alternated between restless sleep and inconsolable crying, her tiny body burning with fever despite the medication. Amelia held her constantly, rocking and singing softly, her own eyes red with exhaustion. "You don't have to stay," she whispered during hour 3 when Lily had finally fallen into fitful sleep. "I know you have important meetings today." "There is nothing more important than this," Grayson replied firmly. "Than her, than you." He'd meant it. He'd canceled a board meeting that had been scheduled for months, ignored 17 urgent emails, and let his assistant reschedule everything else. When his business partner called, frustrated about a delayed acquisition, Grayson had been blunt. "My daughter is sick. Everything else can wait." It was the first time he'd said those words, "my daughter," to anyone in his business world. The first time he'd chosen family over empire. When they finally saw the doctor, the diagnosis was simple but scary for new parents. A severe ear infection that had spread, requiring antibiotics and careful monitoring. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough that Lily would need round-the-clock care for the next few days. "She'll be miserable for about 48 hours, Dr. Patel explained gently. "Lots of fluids, medication every 4 hours, and someone needs to watch her constantly. If her fever goes above 103 or she shows signs of dehydration, bring her back immediately." In the parking lot afterward, Amelia looked ready to collapse. "I should call in sick to work tomorrow, and probably Wednesday too." "No," Grayson said quietly. "Let me take care of her." Amelia stared at him. "You don't know how to take care of a sick baby. Then teach me. Show me what to do, and I'll do it." He looked at Lily, still flushed and whimpering in her car seat. "She needs constant care and you need sleep. You've been up all night. Let me help." "Grayson, you've never even changed her diaper." "Then it's time I learned." The next 24 hours tested every assumption Grayson had about his own capabilities. Lily was miserable, crying inconsolably, refusing to eat, unable to sleep for more than 30 minutes at a time. Her fever made her clingy and confused, wanting comfort but too uncomfortable to accept it. Amelia showed him how to take her temperature, how to measure the antibiotic precisely, how to recognize signs that would require another hospital trip. Then, despite her obvious reluctance to leave them alone, she went home to shower and rest. "Call me if anything changes," she said for the 5th time, lingering by the door of his penthouse. "I mean anything. If she gets worse, if you can't handle it, if, he took her hands gently. "I've got this. I've got her." The first few hours alone with a sick baby were baptism by fire. Lily cried whenever he put her down, so he walked the length of his penthouse for what felt like miles, bouncing gently and singing every song he could remember from his own childhood. His voice was hoarse within an hour. When she finally fell asleep around 2 p.m., he was afraid to move, terrified of waking her. He stood perfectly still in his living room, holding his fevered daughter, watching the rise and fall of her tiny chest and feeling a protectiveness so fierce it was almost violent. She woke up 20 minutes later crying again. By evening, Grayson had learned to function on adrenaline and love alone. He'd mastered the art of one-handed everything, eating, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago, even answering urgent work emails while Lily dozed fitfully against his shoulder. His expensive furniture was covered in burp cloths and blankets. His pristine white couch had mysterious stains that would probably never come out. His marble countertops were cluttered with baby bottles, medicine syringes, and the cheerful chaos of caring for a sick child. It was the most exhausted he'd ever been. It was also the most purposeful. When Amelia returned at 8 p.m. expecting to find chaos or crisis, she found Grayson on the floor of his living room, Lily finally sleeping peacefully in his arms. He was still wearing his dress shirt from that morning, now wrinkled and stained, his hair disheveled from hours of running his hands through it. "How is she?" Amelia whispered. "Better, I think. Her fever broke about an hour ago and she kept down a full bottle." His voice was rough with exhaustion, but his eyes were bright with something that looked like wonder. "She's been sleeping for almost an hour. And how are you?" Grayson looked up at her. This woman who had been doing this alone for 11 months, who had faced every crisis and celebration without backup, who had somehow managed to raise their daughter into the perfect little person currently drooling on his shirt. "I'm understanding why you were so angry with me," he said quietly. "Not just for missing the good parts, but for leaving you to handle all of this alone. The worry, the responsibility, the constant fear that you're not doing enough or doing it right." Amelia sat down beside them carefully, her hand automatically going to check Lily's forehead for fever. It's terrifying sometimes, being the only one who knows her tells, her needs, her little quirks, being the only one responsible for keeping her safe. "You don't have to be the only one anymore," Grayson said, meeting her eyes. "If you'll let me, I want to share it all. The 3 a.m. fevers and the first steps and everything in between." Something in Amelia's expression shifted. A wall coming down, a door opening just a crack. "She threw up on your Armani shirt," she observed with the ghost of a smile. "I noticed. Worth every penny." He looked down at Lily, still sleeping against his chest. "I called Marcus today, asked him to recommend a pediatrician. I want her to have her own doctor, someone who knows her history, and I want to be listed as an emergency contact. Grayson, I also called my lawyer," he continued quietly. "Not for custody or anything adversarial. I want to start paying child support retroactively. Every penny you've spent on her since she was born, plus ongoing support. And I want to set up a college fund." Tears filled Amelia's eyes. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. She's my responsibility too. She always was." He shifted slightly, careful not to disturb Lily. "I made an appointment with a family therapist for tomorrow. Dr. Sarah Kim. She was recommended as someone who specializes in helping families navigate situations like ours. You want us to go to therapy? I want to do whatever it takes to be the father she deserves and the partner you deserve. If that means therapy, parenting classes, learning to change diapers without panicking, whatever it takes." For a long moment they sat in silence, both watching their daughter sleep. Outside, San Francisco was coming to life with evening activities. But inside Grayson's penthouse, the world had narrowed to this small, perfect moment. "She really likes you," Amelia said finally. "Even sick, she kept reaching for you when I tried to take her. She's incredible, Em. Both of you are." His voice broke slightly. "I'm sorry it took almost losing you to make me realize what I had." Amelia leaned against his shoulder, careful not to jostle Lily, and for the first time in 18 months, they felt like a family again. "We have a long way to go," she whispered. "This doesn't fix everything." "I know, but it's a start." Just then Lily stirred in his arms, her eyes fluttering open. Instead of crying, she looked up at both her parents and smiled, her first real smile since getting sick. "Mama," she said clearly, reaching for Amelia, then turning to Grayson with that same bright smile. "Dada." Both parents started crying at the same time. 6 weeks later, Grayson sat in Dr. Kim's office across from Amelia, their weekly therapy session having become as routine as Lily's bedtime stories. Their daughter was with Rebecca today, giving them space to work through the complicated process of rebuilding trust and redefining their relationship. "How are you both feeling about the progress you've made?" Dr. Kim asked, her gentle voice filling the comfortable office space. "Different," Amelia said honestly, tucking a strand of honey blonde hair behind her ear. "Good different, but it's still scary sometimes. Letting myself believe this is real." Grayson leaned forward slightly, his gray eyes focused entirely on Amelia. "What would make it feel more real for you?" It was the kind of question he never would have asked 18 months ago, direct, vulnerable, putting her needs ahead of his own comfort. Dr. Kim had taught him to lead with curiosity instead of defensiveness, to listen for the emotion beneath Amelia's words, instead of just preparing his response. "Time," Amelia replied. "More time of you showing up consistently. More proof that when things get difficult you won't run again." What if I told you I wanted to make it permanent? The words came out before Grayson could second-guess them. What if I told you I want to marry you again? Dr. Kim raised an eyebrow. They hadn't discussed this in their sessions. Amelia went completely still, her emerald eyes searching his face. Is that what you want? Marriage? She asked quietly. I want forever with you and Lily, he said without hesitation. I want us to be a real family, not just two people co-parenting. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to be there for every milestone, every bedtime story, every scraped knee and every triumph. Grayson, I know I don't deserve it. I know I threw away our first marriage like it meant nothing, and I know words are just words. But I'm not the same man who left you, Em. These past 6 weeks with you and Lily have changed me in ways I didn't know were possible. Amelia was crying now, tears streaming down her face as 18 months of carefully constructed walls began to crumble. I'm so scared of believing you, of letting myself love you again and having you decide it's too much. Then don't believe me, Grayson said, standing and moving to kneel in front of her chair. Believe this. He pulled out a small velvet box, but it wasn't what Amelia expected. Instead of a diamond ring, it held a simple silver band with a small charm, a tiny footprint no bigger than a dime. This is Lily's footprint from her birth certificate, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I had it made into a charm. I know I wasn't there when she was born, but I want to carry that moment with me for the rest of my life, as a reminder of what I almost missed, and what I'll never take for granted again. Amelia took the box with shaking hands, touching the tiny footprint charm with reverence. There's something else, Grayson continued, reaching into his jacket pocket. This time, he pulled out a simple platinum band. Elegant but understated, nothing like the elaborate diamond ring he'd given her for their first engagement. This is for you, but only if you're ready, only if you believe I've earned the right to ask. He took a shaky breath. Amelia Rosehart, will you marry me again? Not because of Lily, not because of guilt or obligation, but because I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. Because I want to spend every day for the rest of our lives proving I'm worthy of the gift you're giving me. The office was completely silent except for Amelia's soft crying. Dr. Kim sat quietly in her chair, giving them space for this moment that had been building through weeks of honest conversation and hard work. The ring is beautiful, Amelia whispered, but I need you to understand something. If I say yes, if we do this again, there are no more second chances. This is it, Grayson. Forever means forever. I wouldn't want it any other way. And it won't always be easy. Marriage is messy and complicated and sometimes boring. There will be days when Lily is cranky and I'm exhausted and you're stressed about work, and we'll have to choose each other anyway. I'm counting on those days, he said softly. I'm counting on proving to you every single day that I choose this life, this love, this family we've built. Amelia looked at the ring, then at the charm with their daughter's footprint, then into the eyes of the man who had broken her heart and was now offering to spend his lifetime healing it. Ask me again, she whispered. Grayson's face broke into a smile that transformed his entire expression. Amelia Rosehart, love of my life, mother of my daughter, will you please marry me? Yes, she said through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you again. He slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that were steady now, sure of his choice in a way he'd never been before. When he kissed her, it tasted like second chances and new beginnings, like coming home after being lost for far too long. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. Good, she whispered back. Love should be a little terrifying. It should matter enough to scare you. An hour later, they picked up Lily from Rebecca's house, both of them glowing with happiness and new possibilities. Lily took one look at her parents' faces and clapped her hands in delight, as if she could sense the shift in the emotional landscape around her. Mama! Dada! She squealed, reaching for both of them. That evening, they sat on the floor of Amelia's living room, soon to be their living room, they'd decided, with Lily between them, building towers of blocks and knocking them down with gleeful abandon. It was perfectly ordinary and absolutely magical at the same time. When do you want to have the wedding? Amelia asked as Lily demonstrated her newest trick of stacking 3 blocks before destroying her architectural masterpiece. Tomorrow, Grayson said immediately, making her laugh. But realistically, whenever you want. Big ceremony, small ceremony, courthouse, I don't care as long as you're there. Small, Amelia said. Family and close friends. Maybe in Rebecca's backyard? She has that beautiful garden. Perfect. He caught Lily as she launched herself toward him, giggling. What do you think, princess? Should Daddy marry Mommy again? Lily babbled something that sounded remarkably like, yes, sending both parents into fits of laughter. She approves, Amelia declared. Smart girl, Grayson said, kissing the top of Lily's head. Gets that from her mother. As the evening wound down, and they went through Lily's bedtime routine together, bath, bottle, stories, and songs, Grayson felt a peace he'd never experienced before. This was what happiness looked like. Not the hollow achievement of closing another deal or acquiring another property, but this, his daughter's sleepy smile, his fiancé's hand in his, the promise of thousands of ordinary, extraordinary evenings just like this one. I love our life, he said as they tucked Lily into her crib, watching her drift off to sleep with her thumb in her mouth and her stuffed elephant clutched against her chest. So do I, Amelia replied, leaning into his side. And Grayson, I forgive you. Completely. For all of it. He turned to face her in the dim nursery, overwhelmed by the generosity of her heart. I don't know if I deserve that. You don't have to deserve forgiveness, she said softly. That's the whole point. I'm choosing to let go of the hurt so we can build something beautiful from here. Standing in their daughter's nursery, surrounded by evidence of the life Amelia had built without him and the future they were choosing to build together, Grayson understood something he'd never grasped before. Love wasn't about deserving or earning or being worthy. Love was about choosing each other, again and again, through fear and joy and everything in between. He'd almost lost everything that mattered because he'd been too afraid to choose love when it felt scary. He wouldn't make that mistake again. I love you, Amelia Maddox-to-be, he whispered, using her future name for the first time. I love you too, she whispered back. Welcome home, Grayson. Welcome home. 3 years later, the sound of small feet running down hardwood floors echoed through the house, followed by delighted squeals and the deeper rumble of Grayson's laughter. Amelia smiled from her position at the kitchen counter, where she was putting finishing touches on a birthday cake, decorated with rainbow sprinkles and 4 tiny candles. Daddy, again, again, Lily's voice carried from the living room, breathless with joy. One more time, princess, then we need to help Mommy get ready for your party, Grayson's voice replied, and Amelia could hear the smile in it. At 4 years old, Lily was a perfect blend of both her parents. She had Grayson's determination and analytical mind, but Amelia's warmth and creativity. Her dark curls had grown longer, often adorned with whatever hair accessories she'd chosen that morning, and her gray eyes sparkled with intelligence and mischief in equal measure. The house they'd bought 18 months ago in Palo Alto was everything their old penthouse hadn't been. Warm, lived in, filled with the beautiful chaos of family life. Lily's artwork covered the refrigerator, photo albums documented every milestone and ordinary moment, and the backyard featured a swing set that Grayson had spent an entire weekend assembling with more enthusiasm than skill. Mommy, look what Daddy taught me. Lily burst into the kitchen, her cheeks flushed with excitement. She demonstrated a perfect cartwheel, landing with her arms raised in triumph. That was amazing, sweetheart, Amelia clapped, then caught Grayson's eye as he appeared in the doorway. Should I be worried about what else Daddy is teaching you? Only the important stuff, Grayson grinned, swooping Lily up for a hug, like how to negotiate for extra bedtime stories and the proper technique for making pancake art. He looked different now, still handsome and successful, but softer somehow. His steel gray eyes held a contentment that had never been there during their first marriage. He wore jeans and a casual button-down instead of his usual suits on weekends, and there was often paint or Play-Doh under his fingernails from various art projects with Lily. Speaking of pancake art, Amelia said, your daughter requested dinosaur pancakes for her birthday breakfast tomorrow. Dinosaur pancakes are serious business, Grayson replied solemnly, making Lily giggle. I'll need to consult my reference materials tonight. The doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the first birthday party guests. Within minutes, the house was filled with the cheerful chaos of 4-year-olds, Rebecca and her family, Marcus and his wife, and several other friends whose children had become Lily's playmates. Amelia watched from the kitchen as Grayson played party games with a group of preschoolers, his expensive shirt forgotten as he crawled around on hands and knees pretending to be a lion. The man who had once been terrified of commitment was now the father who showed up to every school play, who knew all the words to Frozen songs, who could braid hair and tie tiny shoes and kiss scraped knees better. He's really changed, hasn't he? Rebecca said quietly, joining her sister by the window. Completely, Amelia replied, her wedding ring catching the afternoon sunlight. Sometimes I look at him with her and wonder how I ever doubted he could be this kind of father. Because he didn't know he could be either, Rebecca observed wisely. Some people need to be shown what they're capable of before they can believe it themselves. The party was a perfect chaos of laughter, cake, and presents. Lily opened each gift with genuine delight and impeccable manners, thanking each friend personally. When she opened the gift from her parents, an art easel with her name painted in rainbow letters, her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Now I can paint like Mommy," she declared, launching herself at both parents for a group hug that nearly knocked them over. As the afternoon wound down and guests began to leave, the Maddox family settled into their evening routine. Lily, exhausted from excitement and sugar, fell asleep during her bedtime story, and Grayson carried her to bed with the gentle expertise of practice. Later, Amelia and Grayson sat on their back porch with glasses of wine, watching the stars appear in the clear California sky. The swing set stood silhouetted against the evening light, and they could hear the soft sounds of their neighborhood settling into night. Dogs barking in the distance, the murmur of other families' conversations through open windows. "Do you remember what you said to me that night at the vineyard?" Amelia asked, curled against Grayson's side on the porch swing he'd installed last spring. "That I missed you, that you wanted to live the world." She smiled up at him. "Did you ever regret giving that up?" Grayson was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "You know what I discovered? The world isn't out there somewhere, waiting to be lived. It's right here. It's Lily learning to ride her bike and skinning her knee and getting back up anyway. It's you singing off-key in the shower and burning dinner because you got distracted by a painting. It's ordinary Tuesday nights and birthday parties and the way Lily says, 'I love you,' with chocolate cake on her face." He paused, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I thought I wanted freedom, but what I really wanted was purpose. I thought I wanted adventure, but what I really wanted was home. I just didn't know that home could be a person, two people, instead of a place. Even when Lily goes through her teenager phase and decides she hates us both," Amelia teased. "Especially then," Grayson laughed. "I can't wait to embarrass her at school dances and interrogate her first boyfriend and teach her how to change a tire and balance a checkbook. You're going to be one of those dads, aren't you? The overprotective kind." "Absolutely, I have a lot of lost time to make up for." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin to dance in their backyard. This was their life now. Not perfect, but real. There were still challenges, moments of stress and disagreement and the ordinary difficulties of marriage and parenthood, but they faced them together, with the hard-won wisdom that love was a choice made new each day. "Grayson?" Amelia's voice was soft in the evening air. "Thank you for coming back to us. Thank you for becoming the man we needed you to be. Thank you for letting me," he replied. "Thank you for loving me enough to give me a second chance and for raising our daughter to be so amazing that I couldn't help but fall in love with being her father. She is pretty amazing, isn't she? Just like her mother." Inside the house, they could hear Lily talking in her sleep, probably narrating some elaborate dream adventure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and joys, scraped knees and bedtime stories, the beautiful mundane reality of family life. Grayson Maddox had spent the first 36 years of his life building an empire, accumulating wealth and power and all the external markers of success. But sitting on his back porch with his wife and daughter sleeping safely inside their home, he understood that everything he'd achieved before paled in comparison to this. Being chosen, being trusted, being home. The little girl who had once reached for him at a wedding, calling him Dada with complete trust, had saved his life in ways he was still discovering. She'd shown him what unconditional love looked like, what it meant to be needed, not for what he could provide, but simply for who he was. And the woman beside him, who had carried their daughter alone through her first months of life, who had documented every milestone in careful detail, who had found the courage to forgive him and trust him with their future, she had given him the greatest gift of all, the chance to be better than he'd ever imagined he could be. As they headed inside to check on Lily one more time before bed, Amelia paused at their daughter's doorway. Lily was sprawled across her toddler bed, arms flung wide, stuffed elephant clutched in one hand and a picture book in the other, even in sleep, surrounded by the things she loved most. "Do you think she'll remember any of this?" Amelia whispered. "The early years when it was just me and her? I hope she remembers that she was loved every single day of her life," Grayson said quietly. "And I hope someday when she's old enough to understand, She'll know that sometimes the best families are the ones that had to fight to stay together. They stood there for another moment, watching their daughter sleep, both thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. The pain, the mistakes, the fear, and ultimately the choice to love each other despite it all. Some love stories are simple. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they live happily ever after. But the best love stories, the ones that last, are messier than that. They're about people who choose each other not just in the easy moments, but in the hard ones. They're about forgiveness and second chances and the courage to believe that people can change. They're about coming home to a love that's been waiting for you, even when you didn't know you were lost. As Grayson turned off the lights and followed his wife to their bedroom, he smiled at the thought of all the ordinary, extraordinary days still ahead of them. Birthday parties and school plays, family vacations and quiet Sunday mornings, the 1,000 small moments that make up a life lived together. He'd once thought happiness was something you achieved, a destination you arrived at through success and acquisition. Now he knew better. Happiness was something you chose, again and again, in the small decisions that nobody else ever saw. It was choosing to get up at 3 a.m. with a sick child, choosing patience over frustration, choosing to say, "I love you," even when it was hard, choosing to show up every day for the people who mattered most. He'd thought he wanted the whole world. It turned out he just wanted home. Would you have made the same choice as Amelia, to forgive and trust again after such deep hurt? Sometimes second chances lead to the most beautiful love stories, but they require courage from both people to build something new from the pieces of what was broken. Your thoughts and experiences matter to this community. Please share them in the comments below. Your participation means a lot to the channel, and your stories might inspire someone else who's facing a similar crossroads in their own life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.